All right, hello everyone. My name is Thomas. This is for my Speech 100 class.
Hi, Thomas. I'm Trish.
Hey Thomas, I'm Frank.
Hey Thomas, I'm Adrian.
Hey Thomas, I'm Jamie.
Hi Thomas, I'm Jeremy.
So this topic right now on training is very, very near and dear to my heart. Last year, I actually lost a shipmate due to the collisions on McCain and Fitzgerald. So the whole point of Navy training is very, very important to me. Who am I? I am a graduate of CTT, which is the command training team. I had the highest score that they've ever recorded. I only missed 1 point because I stood right in one spot. I've been doing training. I have logged hundreds of training hours with other people, and what I've received back from the fleet is everything that I've given back has been very beneficial. So, moving into what we're talking about. Today we're going to talk about degradation of Navy training. Okay? So the Navy training that we have right now is not as prevalent or as useful as it used to be 10, 15 years ago. But why? And we're going to talk about that right now. So our goals are to discuss what is Navy training and where it comes from, the changes in the basic training phase, the impact of computer-based training, CBT, problems that have occurred from CBT, training recommendations that I think would be more prevalent and useful in the fleet, and what is actually occurring in the fleet today. So what is Navy training? Navy training starts off with boot camp and OCS. Boot camp and OCS is approximately 8 weeks. OCS is 12 weeks, and it's given by instructors, and they give the basic fundamentals on how to be a sailor or how to be an officer. After you graduate from basic training, you move on to A school or C school. A school comes first. This is your rate training, your specialty training. After that, you have on-the-job training, or you go to what's called an F school, which is a specialty school, usually just for one portion of your job. Next comes the fleet training. These are synthetic trainers or training groups that come out and actually teach us how to be better sailors. They include firefighting, combat systems training, different aspects of whole ship training, like security training. After basic training in OCS, or during basic training in OCS, we normally have RDCs, recruit division commanders, and what they do is they give the baseline for what a sailor is to be. They train you on how to wear a uniform, how to march, how to speak, what to say, and when to say it. It used to be, 10 to 15 years ago, that the instructors, or the RDCs, would take the instructors and move them to another facility for their next phase, their basic military requirements phase. At the basic military requirements phase, they would learn the rest of it. So what the different parts of a ship are, what the different divisions are, how to talk to a captain, so on and so forth. The next part changed. They took away all the instructors and facilitators, and now it's nothing but computer-based training. There's no more marching from one location to another. The entirety of the naval training basic phase occurs in one building. So they eat, sleep, and train all in the same place to facilitate it being very much like a ship. Changes. Changes occurred back in the late 90s when a pilot program came out for computer-based training. Each group of ratings or job specifications was given about 1% to 5% of groups that received computers. And there was no facilitators, there was no instructors. Everything was in the computer itself. So they went through each section all by themselves, were timed by themselves, paced by themselves, and then they graduated. Well, this became so efficient because the classes were finishing 5, 10, sometimes 2 weeks faster than just using normal instructors. So this was a cost-saving aid because now we could get sailors out to the fleet faster. Full integration occurred in the early 2000s. Now all classes are CBT based. C schools and F schools, because of their difficulty and because of how in-depth it is, are still done by instructors. Impacts of CBT. These are the problems. Higher down times for maintenance. Now, maintenance is very, very costly. According to Callender, in his article 2017, wrote, simple and complex problems are now taken care of by technicians regardless. And the basic sailor is no longer liable for fixing the maintenance on the ship. So this article was entitled Surface Navy Must Revamp on Basic Seamanship. Now, these maintenance costs are very expensive. I used to work at SRF, which was a maintenance facility, and it would cost $5,000 for me to go do one job, whether it was a simple job of changing fuses or a complete overhaul of a piece of equipment. And civilians are even more expensive. Technical proficiency has gone down. Why did it go down? It's because now the sailor is paced on by himself. And if he can click through as fast as he can go home. So this was really sought after by the sailors because the faster they can complete the course with no accountability, the faster that they could go home, which all sailors love liberty. It's dangerous to sailors because sailors are no longer proficient in what they need to know and what they need to learn. For a quick sea story, I asked a sailor one time, can you please disassemble the panel so we can get access to it? He said, I will do this as soon as you can show me where the magic screwdriver is. The magic screwdriver was a piece of the CBT where he would click on it and the screwdriver would go up and it would disassemble each of the 4 bolts and it would pull it back so he could see what was inside. It's dangerous to equipment. Why is it dangerous to equipment? Because if a sailor doesn't know what they're supposed to do with the equipment could be irreparably damaged, involving higher maintenance costs. With the higher maintenance costs for repairs, especially some of these parts, especially with, radar, some of those parts are over $250,000 for one module. The price that's been paid. I lost almost an entire division on USS McCain. The way that their berthing was set up during the impact, it killed almost all the ICMN and ETs that I knew. Ferrum wrote in 2018 in his article, Navy's Massive Training Program Faces Long-Term Threats. The deaths were actually blamed on bad training and lack of knowledge concerning navigation and equipment usage. We lost $33 million due to budget cuts for training. The training cuts force sailors to learn at sea. There's a maxim that says you'll learn this in the fleet. With the up-tempo that we have right now, we don't have time to learn in the fleet. Fleet schedules, fleet training, there's no time for one sailor to work with another sailor. It's maintenance needs to be done, this needs to be done, painting needs to be done, and there's no time for that training to occur. The high up-tempo leaves very little time for the proficient, on-the-job training, OJT, that needs to occur. So now my recommendations. I have a few. Revert to a full instructor-led or hybrid training. This is what I received when I came in. This allows the sailor to have a moment to talk to the instructor where they can't talk and communicate with the computer-based training. The instructors would always give anecdotes, a little bit of a secret of the history that they learned at. Holding students accountable for CBT. To go back to what I was speaking about earlier, McDermott had an article called, Are You Ready for Computer-Based Training? What CBT Can and Can't Do for Your Company. What it can't do is it can't hold sailors accountable for the training. If they click through, they've completed the module, there's a check in the box and it's done. But that sailor is responsible for the knowledge that they click through, and that's not occurring out in the fleet. Next thing is, don't rely on ships for on-the-job training. I spoke to you earlier about how there is no time for training out at sea, or there's a very little amount of time. Sailors must be responsible for a small level of knowledge to be able to complete their daily tasks, and they don't have that right now. Professional Military Knowledge Eligibility Exam, PMKEE. This used to be called a very much smaller an acronym called a PAR, Professional Advancement Requirement. They did away with this 20 years ago and they just brought it back. This is the minimum knowledge required for each rating and each rank to progress to the next rank. Right now, all you have to do is take the exam, and if you pass, move to the next rank. It's not required that you are proficient in what that rank requires. The last is more reliance on technical proficiency than leadership. The advancement exams that we have right now are 50-50 breakdown. And I would like to see it moved 75%, 25%, 75% based on technical proficiency in order to do their job. 25% based on leadership and how to attain the next rank. So what is the Navy doing right now? The Navy has actually completely removed CBT training with a couple of small exceptions. Cebu in 2017 had an article called Navy Air Force Takes Steps to Weed Out Excessive Computer-Based Training. In June 16, 2017, the Navy and the Air Force completely removed all requirements for CBT with just a couple that would count as requirements to do your job. So you still had to do your cyber awareness, which was a requirement to get an email account. But the fleet responded and said, look, we don't need to waste all this time. It's an hour per training. It's wasted time on these sailors. Get rid of it. The next thing they did was they created a blended training program of CBT and instructor-led portions called a pipeline. They take a massive amount of information, they squash it into a minimum time, and there's a small prerequisite that is done that is computer-based, and then the rest of it is instructor-led, which is kind of what I want. The last thing that they're doing is called Ready Relevant Training. It's an implemented program that they're doing right now where the sailor goes and does a small portion of training at sea and then returns to shore duty for more in-depth training. With this in-depth training, they are more familiar with the smaller aspects. They can identify the equipment. They know kind of what it does rather than starting at bare bones and working your way all the way through forward. So in closing, training is very important. The defense of our nation really requires to have proficient sailors, airmen, Marines, and soldiers that can do their jobs proficiently. Not having that available, sending them out into harm's way only is detrimental to the person themselves, to the readiness of the armed forces, and to each one of us, because we rely on them to do their job safely. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.